time when Wilbon normally joins us, we will be off the air because we have White Sox baseball against the Guardians. So we have the early off time. So Wilbon, nice enough to change his schedule for us and to join us now right at the start of NBA free agency. And it looks like the Bulls are retooling. Really, it looks like another rebuild. And Wilbon brought to you by Waddle's guys at Hawk.
HawkAuto.com. Looking for a new or pre-owned vehicle? Shop HawkAuto.com and search over 3,000 vehicles at 9 convenient locations. Find your next car at HawkAuto.com. You should ask Michael your web poll question about general managers.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And I have not brought that up. All right, let's start there, Wilbon.
Okay.
So I polled this question. Your life depends on one of these men to build you a championship team. Which one of these three are you hiring? All right, so you have to pick one. Don't give me none of the above. And here, option A.
POFC.
What? No,
Not an option.
No, not an option. Option A, Gar Forman. Option B, AK. Option C, Ryan Pace. Who you picking?
Oh, Ryan Pace is definitely not.
By the way, I did some research, Mike, just to add a little, information to the
record,
question.
You going to give me his record over the
No,
time?
I'm just going to say, and what was it, however many years he was here, in the 4 years he was with Matt Nagy, they went to the postseason twice. He was executive of the year in 2018. The Bears, I think, sent 8 players to the Pro Bowl, just to give you a little info.
Well, they were 12-4. I haven't forgotten it. So, AK, Ryan Pace, Gar Forman. You guys know you have a history of me saying on these airwaves that Gar Forman and John Paxson together, you can't really have one without the other. They built the right team twice. They lost to LeBron, and they got injured. Derrick Rose got hurt. That's easy for me. They drafted Jimmy Butler at the 30th or whatever it was.
I'm giving Pax all the credit for that.
Well, okay, Pax and Gar, they're together. They're a package deal. Sorry, they don't go without the other.
I don't know. In this poll, I gave you Gar.
Why would Pax go without Gar? Why would that be?
Because I think Pax is the easier option. I think Pax would win this going away. And I think
he doesn't win it going away if he and Gar. My point is, why would he and Gar? Why would you separate him and Gar in the poll?
John made all the good decisions, and Gar made all the bad decisions. Come on, Mike, you know that.
It didn't work like that. It's like Simon and Garfunkel. It's like Elton John, and I'm drawing a blank on whoever wrote
Bernie Taupin.
Bernie Taupin. You don't get one without the other. No, it would be. I think it would be Gar and Pax because they built the right team twice. They built the right team twice.
And I'm with you.
People don't acknowledge that because it didn't cash in, but. Those Bears, and what's unfair to Ryan Pace is that a double doink. They're in the next week's title game, so that's unfair to him.
Well, but wait a minute.
Him with that.
Wait a minute. But now I was with you until that point. My reaction. I'm shocked by the poll results. We've had 6,200 people vote. 59.9 of the people say Ryan Pace. And I was with you where Ryan Pace is far like a really, really bad general manager in my book. Not because of what Waddle mentioned, but Ryan Pace's first draft was Kevin White to set up his foundation.
Yeah,
terrible pick.
Terrible pick. And that informs me quite a bit. But again,
hold on, Michael. And then don't forget, he made probably the biggest mistake in Chicago sports history, not drafting the right quarterback, and all he had to do was take the other two instead of the one. And then on the double doink thing, that was the guy he signed, and he knew that he was hurting all year. He kept him on the roster all year, so his guy was the guy.
That I forgot. I forgot about that.
Cody Parkey cost himself the playoff game when we all knew that he was wrong. So, yes, he made a couple of good moves via the trades. He couldn't draft worth a lick, though.
His drafting was terrible. That's why I can't choose him.
Yes.
I can't choose him, so the answer is Gar Pax.
Okay, so break down the AK option here. Had a good run.
They haven't done anything.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all. That's all. There's no bashing, and there hasn't been as much time as there was for Gar Pax, but there hasn't been a success yet. Have you guys talking about the rumored trade talk that the Bulls were in? Rumored
with Golden State.
I'm not reporting this. With Golden State,
yes. So fill in our listeners who weren't here earlier.
Of course, the rumor out there is that it was Zach LaVine to Golden State for Chris Paul and Andrew Wiggins.
And they said no, and Golden State reportedly said no.
Which wouldn't surprise me, really. It really wouldn't. I mean, Zach LaVine is not viewed positively around the league.
And then they just released CP3.
Well, yeah, they released him. Well, CP3, even if he'd been involved in that trade, he would not have wound up playing in Chicago.
Right.
I mean, Chris is in that portion of his career now. Look, it's a great move for San Antonio. They're going to get look what happened with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the 1 year he played with Chris Paul in Oklahoma City. When everybody knew Chris wasn't going to stay long, but Alexander still calls Chris Paul now for strategic basketball advice. Now, like last month. He's a runner-up MVP. And so Chris Paul has that kind of respect among young players who realize, oh, my God, this guy knows what he's doing. And if Wembanyama is as smart as we think, he's going to do the same thing and be impacted the same way Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was. And Greg Popovich is at the helm of this. Greg Popovich, just look at the quotes he had. He was talking about Chris Paul in, like, April after a game. Maybe it was late March. And you just knew then that if Pop could get Chris Paul to come and help shepherd this process, no, Chris won't be there unless it's maybe as a coach, when San Antonio cashes in. But the Bulls aren't. They don't have that kind of person to work with. But I haven't asked Chris. Maybe he would. I know he loves Kobe White. That I know. I know he loves Kobe White. So maybe he thinks there's something there with Kobe White. Maybe I don't know what he thinks about Patrick Williams. That move did not make me feel good. 5 years, $90 million for Patrick Williams. From what? The only thing I wonder is if Patrick Williams could be Bobby Portis. And if he could be Bobby Portis, then he's got value, and you want to keep him. But I don't know that. So
I hope he has Bobby Portis's approach to passion for the game.
A professional, yes, absolutely, Tommy. So same here. I think we're on the same page on that. I just, I know the Bulls built the right team twice. They did. That's a fact. They drafted well. They re-signed the right people. They had a team in place that could challenge both Cleveland and Miami, and they did. And they lost to a guy many people think is reasonable people think is the second or third greatest player of all time. I'm not going to take down Gar and Pax because they lost to LeBron.
Can I argue that maybe AK had built a decent team before Lonzo Ball got hurt?
Yes, you can. They went for.
And AK comes from a Denver program where he had an impact in building
but I'm
or
not
scouting.
Going with that. I got to see what he's done as his own guy.
Okay,
and he did do. Your argument is they were in first place. The problem is it wasn't a large enough sample. It was like.
Agreed.
I don't know, 40 games, something like that.
Right.
So I'm with you on that. I was hoping. Look, I was hopeful. I was excited. I was beyond hopeful. And I don't have anything there. I'm not going to bash AK. I'm just saying, if you ask me who of those three had a longer track record, it's Gar and Pax. There's no question.
Well, see, if you won't trash AK, I will.
Who'd you vote for, Silvy?
I voted for Gar.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because of the connection to Pax?
Well, just because I felt like he knew players better to draft, and I give Pax most of the credit too. But I can't vote for AK, and I cannot vote for Ryan Pace.
Jim Boylan was who's higher?
Jim Boylan was still Pax and Gar. Yeah, I mean. And Jerry. And Jerry.
Listen, you got to hold your nose regardless of when you vote.
That's why.
There was a 10-year run of challenging. From the drafting of Derrick Rose in 2008 to after they traded Jimmy Butler in 2018. That's a 10-year run.
Yeah,
of challenging, of being relevant. Not like now.
Yeah, the regime, they knew how to draft. Let me ask you this then about the current regime. How then are they going to get out of Zach? I mean,
somebody will take him. They're just going to have to take less back than they want.
Like how?
And somebody will get injured. Look, there are going to be injuries and underperforming players between Thanksgiving and the New Year's weekend, and so somebody will say, "Oh my God, we're supposed to be 8 games better than this," and maybe Zach LaVine, we need his scoring, or somebody's going to get hurt who plays the position. You can get lucky. I've seen people. I saw Washington get out of contracts for Gilbert Arenas, for God's sake, and it was somebody else in Washington. There was another contract, Chris Webber's contract. They got out from under, some onerous contracts. Gilbert Arenas is the most egregious. I mean, the guy was waving imaginary guns. Brought a gun to the locker room, remember? So what are we talking about here? I mean, he didn't bring it. He endorsed it. Or whatever it was, I've forgotten all the details, even though I had to cover it. Guns in the locker room. You couldn't. Gilbert Arenas' contract was undumpable, and they dumped it.
Yeah. So we were discussing this on the station earlier. The morning show was. Because we were both, I believe, I'll speak for me. I was very pro signing Zach LaVine. He was young. He could score in this league, yes. The commodity of scoring and athleticism. I thought he was getting better. So I was even though it was a lot of money, I was very on board to signing Zach LaVine. And I thought he would get better. And at the very worst, Michael, I always thought, like you just said, that he would always be an asset that you could trade. I never thought that you would not be able to get at least fair market value back. Now, that has been proven to be not true. And
you know what, Silvy? I thought he would come along at the same sort of rate and trajectory as Devin Booker. Because at one point, those guys were favorably compared, and nobody would make that comparison.
That's what we were hopeful on.
That's what we were hopeful on.
And we've been proven wrong.
We had reason to think that it's over for that. Mm-hmm. That's done. That ship has come and gone. And so paying him winds up being – but this is what great general managers have to do, anticipate this better than you and me. That's their job.
What happened to him? Right. Like, do some guys just not have it? Is there something upstairs with him? Is he not a good teammate?
Sometimes it can be all the above. There can be a gene you have to notice of selfishness or selflessness, and how to discern which guy has what. Sometimes it's the people you're playing with, the organization you're with, how you're being coached, who you're practicing with every day. Like, it's no coincidence. Once again, I'm going to go back to this person. It's no coincidence that Devin Booker got to practice and be in the same locker room with Chris Paul every day. They went from never having won a playoff game, or maybe never even in a playoff game, to getting to the finals. That's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that people go to San Antonio. If you tell me that Kawhi Leonard starts his career with, I don't know, somebody else, I'm not going to use the Heat because that's a bad example. That could be another place where they do. But let's say he starts his career in Orlando or Detroit or somewhere, and he's not held at the same level of standard. The bar isn't as high. The practices aren't as spirited. The coaching isn't as exact and exacting. That's when people say coaches don't matter, they're idiots. They're morons. And it doesn't just have to deal with in-game decisions or plays being drawn up during timeout. It's what you're there. It's what you encounter every day in the workplace. Does Tom Brady do what Tom Brady does without Bill Belichick, no matter how they came to, not stand each other at the end? No, because that environment helped create what he was and became. So I don't know what Zach LaVine, if you switch Devin Booker, or if you switch Devin Booker and Zach LaVine, is one so different than the other that the results follow the other guy? I don't know, because I've never been around those guys every day. I remember Devin Booker, who I do know well. I remember Devin Booker saying to me when I was doing a piece on Chris Paul, and he said, and he understood that Chris was going to be demanding in a way that very few people were demanding. And he said to me one day, he said, Chris isn't for everybody. But that was such a telling line, because what it said was, he's not for everybody, but I I get this. I get it that this guy is going to make this place better. And that's what you have in certain laboratories and gyms. And I don't know. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened with Zach LaVine, and if it's him, if he teamed with the wrong people, does he not respond well? It would take an interesting study, but it would take if you just spent a week talking to people who played against him and with him, you'd find out.
You made a statement that coaching matters, so that gives me an excellent ability to segue to baseball. And sports are different. I get it. Managers and head coaches for NBA teams or NFL coaches, they're being asked to do different things. But with that as a backdrop, Mike, you look at what's happened to the Chicago Cubs. How much of that sticks to Craig Counsell?
Well, not yet. It's just too early. When I say too early, I mean it's his first year. And they're losing the games all by the same script. I don't mean last night 7-1. They've lost more one-run games than anybody in baseball. Probably when was the last time somebody got to July 4 and had lost as many one-run games? So I don't know. And how flippable is that? I don't know.
It's interesting. Last year, Sylvia and I were looking at this at one of the breaks. Last year at this time, they were 40-45. They are currently 39-46.
So they're the same, but the one-run games are, like, not possible. And I'm not an analytics guy. I don't study numbers at all anymore. But I'm sure there's an easy record to find of what the Cubs are this season in one-run games. They're in one-run games every single day and lose most of them and give up leads in most of them. The other night they were ahead 5-3 with the Brewers, and they said, that's it. I'm done. I'm not going to watch this anymore because they're going to lose this game. And they held on and won. But that's the game they lose every night. So I don't know, like, how much of that is Counsell's fault. I'm less interested in that answer than I am how changeable is this in the short term.
The thing that bothers
when can they change it,
Michael? The thing that bothers me is those things around the edges that baseball people like to say. They've been thrown out on the bases, I think, at the highest level in Major League Baseball. You know, I think Friday, Bellinger didn't know how many outs there were. That should be on Bellinger. Yeah. Bellinger's got to know that. But this is a commonplace with the Cubs, and no one seems upset about it. Like that, isn't that the responsibility of the manager to clean up, whether to talk to the team or to say at the end of a game, look, we're better than this, guys. Like, and this is on me. I'm the manager here. Like the team's fundamentals is a reflection of the manager.
Yes, it is, and I think it still is, Sylvie. Even though now it seems like people upstairs are managing baseball teams, telling managers when to take pitchers out and when to make moves, which is why I am so down on Major League Baseball. I'm down with it. Major League Baseball is the first love of my life of any kind, and I find it loathsome at times. I find it so bad I just don't watch. I don't consume it the way I used to, and have as recently as 2017, 18, 19. I just find baseball to be unwatchable.
I have something for you.
Even though Theo helped put more action back in it, he can't solve some of the other stuff. He could. Major League, Theo Epstein needs to be the commissioner of baseball, not Rob Manfred. Not Rob Manfred. Theo Epstein needs to be the commissioner of baseball.
I have something for you that I thought of Waddle when I saw this over the weekend, but you led me to it, and I didn't know when I'd play it today. John Smoltz, okay? We know John Smoltz, and John Smoltz is one of the national voices of baseball, yes. Yeah. So Dan Dockich is one of our friends. He does a national radio show still. Smoltz was a guest with Dan Dockich, I think Friday. I forget when this was on. But he was talking about, in his opinion, on how analytics has ruined the starting pitcher and has ruined baseball for the worse. I want you to listen to this. This is 90 seconds of your time, Wilbon. Okay. It's not long, but I think it leads you perfectly into
no time is too long to hear John Smoltz.
Right. And Waddle, this is something that we've talked a lot about in the last month or two. Take a listen to John Smoltz talking about on how analytics has ruined baseball and the starting pitcher.
I wouldn't say a word if injuries were getting better in this philosophy of analytics towards pitching. They're getting worse. That's why they don't talk about it.
Right.
We've been screaming at the mountaintop for years about these players' careers getting shortened, and they don't frankly care because they're just going to get another Paul Skeens in their mind. That's what they think. The next man up. it is all possible. We're brainwashed to think 100 pitches and a guy breaks. Everything we're doing is opposite of successful long-term careers. We limit, we baby, we don't let them do the things they're naturally gifted to do. We've turned them into robots, and we've asked them to just go as fast and as hard as you can. There is nothing wrong with pitching at 97 miles an hour if you have the capacity to throw at 101. There's nothing wrong with having a 3.4 ERA if it gives you 230 innings. Do you know it's impossible to have a bad year and pitch 220 innings? It's statistically impossible. But yet we're asking guys to go 180, and we're going to compartmentalize the rest of those innings through other guys. So, yes, the short answer is we have to prepare these guys differently and ask them to do things that were more long-term than short-term. But until we do that, we're going to have the same type of thinking that you just iterated, that when is his Tommy John coming? You're going to find an outlier out of every 50 pitchers, but you're not going to find 10. And I think that's the problem in our game.
What'd you think of that, Wilbon?
John Smoltz is a genius. John Smoltz is a genius. A practical genius, a practical everyday. Come on. The guy did it all in baseball. And the people who are in baseball now who make most of these decisions at the club level are people I find loathsome. I do. Can't put it more plainly to you than that. They've ruined the game for me. I told you this. When we start talking about exit velo, stop. What are we talking about? So if a guy hits the ball 15% harder than Tony Gwynn, it makes him more valuable on what level? People are, I was saying now this world is not for me. This is not.
Well, don't go anywhere.
I got no other worlds to go.
Okay. Sounds like he's walking out the door.
I got to stay here.
So long, everybody. It sounds like Harry Carey.
I just ignore it. I just ignore it, except if I get to talk to somebody like John Smoltz. I'd like to give a hug.
The problem is right now is you can't just jump from where the things are now to the way things used to be. You've got to go back and train.
That's what he said. Yeah.
Right. And that's what some people don't understand.
He doesn't believe, they want you to throw 101 miles an hour.
I know.
Full
every
tilt. He's saying there's nothing wrong with throwing 97 miles an hour if it means having a 3.5 ERA.
Right.
Was anything wrong with it for Greg Maddux? With 350 wins?
Of course not.
Come on.
No.
They don't care.
And it would make the product more. It would make the product better to watch too.
Of course it would. Baseball as a product is broken. And Theo went a long way toward fixing it. And the pitch clock does that to a large degree. It's at least watchable now on that level. But what they've done to the starting pitcher to just eviscerate the starting pitcher and one of the great stars of the game is starting pitching. It was exciting. That's why I paid money as a kid to come to Wrigley Field, to go to Comiskey Park. I paid money to go see Nolan Ryan and be in there for, third time through the order against Dick Allen. Yes, baseball was better. Baseball has regressed. I'm not going to make the argument that football and basketball have regressed. I'm not going to make that. I'll make the argument very easily baseball has regressed. I was watching the other night, there was an introduction, or maybe it was just online, on Instagram or something, and they did an introduction of the 1971 All-Stars, and it gave me goosebumps. They just introduced them, and they lined up on the foul line, and they were in that one All-Star game were 14 of the greatest players who ever played. And now, I don't care. And they made it that way.
That stinks. Michael, great stuff. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, you guys. Be good.
There you go.
Enjoy the 4th.
You too. Have a great 4th.
Yeah, amen.
Michael Wilbon, kind enough to join us a day earlier. Again, we'll be off tomorrow at this time.